Hello, everyone. It's Sibyl Star. I'm here to give the astrology forecast for the coming week of September 18th to 24th. You can see that I am in front of a fall scene. So, because we do move into Libra this week, the autumn equinox, the fall equinox is happening here in the Northern Hemisphere. So, but anyway, let us get on with the astrology and we will get to that piece and what that means. All right, so this week we have the sun in Virgo from 25 to 30 degrees. And then, like I said, basically on the 23rd in most of the world, September 23rd is when the sun moves into Libra, the autumn equinox. But we have the last degrees of Virgo. And so this week on Wednesday, we have the sun is actually opposite um, Neptune and Neptune is in its own sign. Neptune is in the sign of Pisces. And so it brings in the Virgo Pisces axis and what that means, that energy. Well, to begin with, they're both signs of service. Virgo is more in the body, practical service, taking care of the body, and it's an earth sign. Whereas Pisces is a water sign, like I said, ruled by Neptune. It can be very ethereal. It's the world of the imagination and of what lies beyond the veil, and the world of the invisible and energy and spirituality. And of course, it brings in, I feel like it comes together as the practical mystic. They say, the one who, walks in two worlds, walks in the spiritual realm, but with practical feet, doing things here in service here on Mother Earth and being fully embodied that way. And of course, I always love to bring in one of the meanings of Virgo to me is that it reminds us that there is no difference between the sacred and the mundane. And that's really this opposition between Virgo and Pisces is helping us remember that it is a blending of the two. There is no difference. They are the same. And that it is and there is no difference. It is really our attitude of how we approach things, our mindfulness. Washing the dishes can be every bit as sacred, or taking a shower every bit as sacred as sitting in prayer. So it's a very grounded, practical connection to spirituality and all that is. And of course, it also brings in the shadow side of the rescuer. As I said, Neptune and Pisces is very much about, it's a water sign, so it is feeling, it is emotional, and it feels and energetic. It really feels the energy and the emotion in the energy of the world. And so when it feels that much suffering, and then Virgo is a fixer, wants to make things better, wants to help, which is a wonderful quality, but it can get into rescuing. Okay, what we call the victim, and it also can bring in potential for feeling victimized, and to know if that shows up for you, that is just really important to get an understanding of that none of us really are victims, and to remember that um, everything serves us in some way, and often, especially our challenges, they really serve us in some way. So anyway. So to just know this energy is present, and it's important to release any places where we might, or come to an awareness, any places where we might feel like a victim, so we can maybe get a different perspective on that. Okay. All right. Virgo is, like I said, the archetype of the priestess and the sacred work. And Virgo says it's time to take care of practical concerns. Tending to the details of everyday life may not sound like loads of fun, but it is necessary and it is sacred. Like I said, self-care is sacred. It's an ideal time to get our space organized. But of course, the shadow side of Virgo is perfectionism. The goal is self-improvement. The goal is always improvement. Knowing Virgo says we can always do better, be better. But the thing is to never is we get into the shadow material if we think we never measure up. Because, as they say, Virgo's always trying to organize chaos, create organization out of chaos. And the minute you turn, it goes back to chaos. So it's, um, how How much chaos can you live with? And to allow the natural flow to happen, and yet kind of keep your space organized in a way that is serving you. And the other shadow of Virgo is the inner critic and how we talk to ourselves. And it's just so important to be kind to ourselves. All right, but we are moving into Libra. We have the fall equinox happens on actually here on in Pacific time. It happens on September 22nd at 11:50 p.m. But most of the world, it will occur at 11:50, like in the morning, early in the morning. It's not 11:50. It will occur um, early in the morning at different places around the world. It's the best way to say that. You can convert that time if you want to know your exact time. Yeah, such as in Central Time, it'll be at 12:50 a.m. Okay, so all right. So anyway, what is the fall equinox? It is the balance between light and dark, but the light begins to wane as we enter the darker, more introspective time of the year here in the Northern Hemisphere. It is the time of Persephone's descent to the underworld, where she entered a maiden but returned queen of the underworld, where she healed souls, preparing them for rebirth, which is the spring. When we look at the natural, we look at the seasons, but it is also about the inner work of self-empowerment and what that might look like for us. And just like, I'm here in front of, this beautiful fall scene where the leaves are turning color and starting to fall. And so it is teaching us to let go of something that no longer has life force, because the tree remains strong. And so it has to let go of what no longer has life force for us. So that feels like it's always a teaching for us. And it's also what is the second harvest in the turning of the wheel. And as the dark time begins, our ancestors would give thanks for the food and then start preparing for winter. So it is also a time of gratitude and saying thank you. So the sun moves into Libra at 0 degrees, and on that day at the fall equinox. And Libra is seeking balance. It's the self versus other, but also in the general environment. And, I've often heard people say, oh, Libra, they're balanced. Libra is about seeking balance in all of us. And I love that image on the Aleister Crowley deck. I've talked about it before, the Thoth deck, of the Libra image, the adjustment card, where it is the goddess Themis, and she is standing on the tip of the sword. And as she's standing on the tip of the sword, become aware that that is the place of balance. And so we're always seeking it, kind of doing that dance of, and I feel like another word for balance is inner peace. Libra is very much the sign of peace, and it is seeking inner peace. And it is, uh, and I feel like, and at least in my own lifetime, I have more moments of inner peace. I'm not going to say I live in inner peace all the time, but I have many more moments of inner peace. Okay. So it's seeking peace, harmony, and serenity. Libra also brings in relationships because it brings in the other. It's the seventh sign. And so it brings in, now, how do we have, how do we have considerate relationships with other people? And how do we our interpersonal skills? So it brings in our interpersonal skills and how we get along with others. And also too, so it also brings in, how do we get along with ourselves, our relationship with ourselves as well. But anyway, it is a time when the earth is barren. And so in more ancient times, when the earth became barren, the people, we needed of each other more. And so issues of trust would come up. And I feel like that's part of that place of inner balance, where we learn to trust ourselves. And as we do, it allows us to learn to trust others. Okay. Libra is very empathetic. Many counselors have the sign Libra. And Libra can see the validity in both sides of an issue. That's why they can be great judges, but they can also be called indecisive because it's hard to actually make a decision when you see, because they live in Libra lives is an energy that lives in paradox. And so it recognizes the world is shades of gray. And just for one thing to be right doesn't make something else wrong. It's just what is its level of truth for each person in this particular situation, because things change. Okay. And so and I feel like that's part of that dance of inner balance and inner peace. Okay. But one of the shadows of Libra is that it can be over compromising. It's called the cult of the nice. It will do anything to keep the peace and serenity. But the truth of it is, a conflict avoidance can put us out of balance quicker than anything. So it's really important to realize what needs to be dealt with and what isn't important. The other term would be fight. Learn how to fight. Choose your battles. Okay, you don't need to fight them all. Okay, and another Libra shadow is comparing oneself to others. Because of that, where we're first meeting the other. Do I measure up? And the important thing to remember is that we all have our own gifts. They may be different than others, as well as the fact we all have our own timing. We all have our own soul journey that is cyclical. We're someplace else in our own cycle. Someone, we may be in a period where we're like the leaves, letting go of some things so that we can prepare for what wants to give birth in the spring, and to just recognize where we are in our own cycle. All right. Now, this Libra, the sun going into Libra at 0 degrees Libra is bringing this into a conjunction with what is called the Super Galactic Center, and which is at Libra 2 degrees 22 minutes, and it will be in aspect from September 22nd to the 28th, but exact on September 25th. All right. And so what the Super Galactic Center is, our 3D astrophysicists call it a black hole. And they feel, but the higher dimensional beings, channel works and higher dimensional beings say it is actually a portal. From our perspective, it's a black hole, but the truth of it is that it is a portal to other galaxies. We just don't have the technology yet to understand how it works. And my understanding is that the most important teaching from this, well, one is, of course, is that if this coming in Libra, it always brings, relationships as one of the something very significant. Okay. But the other thing is, it is about the law of attraction. And of course, we know the law of attraction, is what you put out into the field, you get back. Once again, there is, self and other and balance and, all of that. But I heard something recently that really explained it in a way that just really landed as making more sense to me. And it said, it is asking, what are you broadcasting? For that is what you are attracting. To look at what is showing up in your field, for that is what you're broadcasting. That is what is coming back. And you might be surprised. And here's just a little example of just, when a mother calls her child home, that is a frequency. She's putting that out, and that child is the one that responds. So what are you broadcasting? What are you putting out? And then to know that the universe speaks in frequency. It doesn't speak in language. It's the energy that you're walking with in the world is what is coming back. Okay. And so I want to go a little further into this with Venus, because Venus is the ruler of Libra. So she makes her a prominent energy in the teaching here. And Libra is still dancing with Jupiter in Taurus and soon to be Uranus in Taurus, which are also ruled by Venus. Okay, so there's a very Venusian quality here. And we know Venus has been very prominent. She's been retrograde. She's been in Leo since June. She went retrograde on July 22nd. She went direct again on September 3rd. And she's still in what we call her retroshade zone, or her her retrograde zone is that she's going back over the places where she is already touched. So there, maybe now's the time to get clarity of what was actually going on, during that Venus retrograde cycle for each of us. And so this week, Venus is in Leo from 16 to 20 degrees, and Jupiter's at 15 degrees all week. So that's the dance. Anyway, so I feel like one of these teachings, Venus is so much about love, and it's self-love as well as love of other. They're both there, self-love, self-esteem, and Taurus has a lot to do with the self-worth aspect of it. Okay. And so, and Leo, of course, has to do, it's ruled by the sun. It's our life force. It's our passion. It's what makes us come alive. And so I feel like this, and a square can be a challenge. Okay. So there's this dance, kind of a dance of tension, maybe a way to say it. You could kind of feel the tension in the air of these two coming together. And my teacher, Steve Forrest, used to always say, it's really a matter, everything is about integration. It's just a matter of how difficult that integration process might be. And a square is a little more difficult. But, Jupiter and Venus are both blessings. So even their difficult ones can be very exciting. Anyway, but I feel like the teaching is so much that we are worthy of living a life of passion and inspiration, to follow the joy in our lives. And I feel like the Venus retrograde was an activation of our own creative energies, that creative surge. It's about following our own creative process, even when it might be challenging to do so, because we are all remembering that we are creators, that we carry this life force in us. Okay. But there's, some of this conditioning around feeling deserving of having what we want, being who we are and having what we want and sharing it with the world. We want to hold it back. So it's also healing about any issues around self-worth and self-love. And recently, I had an experience where I felt undervalued. It came into my awareness that this was actually a reflection of how I was feeling about myself. And this is what I was broadcasting. And so the universe speaks in frequency, not words. And I realized that I needed to broadcast my own self-love and worth into the field. And like I say, this is for all of us. And for me, it was around self-care. By caring for ourselves, I haven't been caring for myself as well as I should have. Let's put it this way. I have not been doing good self-care. It's a better way to say that. And so by caring for ourselves is broadcasting that we love ourselves, which allows us to love others more because it becomes our frequency. It is a frequency of love, and we attract what is in our field. Okay. But I also had another discovery, which was really a wonderful discovery. I discovered that how much generosity was in my field. And so just to remember that whatever it is that is coming back to you is what's in your field. And so, when I discovered all this generosity in my field, I was so grateful and realized that's also a frequency that I am broadcasting. So this is what I feel like this teaching really is becoming aware of what you're broadcasting, because that's what you are attracting. And as you look into it, you might find it's not just where you're lacking, it's where you're loving and growing and sharing this energy with the field. Okay. And that's what's coming back to you. And um, and to give ourselves a pat on the back and be kind to ourselves. And affirmations like, I am worthy of love. My heart is open and filled with love. I am embodied love. And as we learn to love ourselves, we also learn to like ourselves, which is an act of rebellion in a culture that does not support that. Okay. And as we do, we can release all the ways in which we compare ourselves to others and honor our own uniqueness and that we are incomparable. That we can't compare. It's always going to be apples and oranges. Okay. All right. We also have Mercury in Virgo. It's trine Jupiter in Taurus. It's Mercury in Virgo. It's Mercury in Virgo from 8 to 14 degrees of Virgo, which is an earth sign. Mercury in Virgo can be very focused, efficient, and practical, detail-oriented, organized, and analyzes data. And I really feel, and I really come to actually to a whole new understanding of Mercury retrograde, because Mercury is so much about our perception. And when Mercury retrograde comes along, it's asking us to slow down and get a different perspective. I mean, on one hand, yes, it is about tying up old things, old unfinished business projects, detailed stuff. But it's kind of like us, the old material, we can kind of let it go so that we're then open to what new is coming, this new perspective. And I feel like, as they say, when we change the way we look at things, what we look at changes. Okay. Yeah. And I feel like a big teaching with Mercury retrograde is becoming aware of self criticism through our self talk. And in this trine to Jupiter, it's like we can change our reality by changing the way we talk to ourselves, and inspiring to others as well. Inspiring talk, inspiring others, not just ourselves. As we're kind and inspiring to ourselves, we inspire others, and a belief in ourselves. Okay. Yes, all right. And both of these are earth signs, which bring in practical steps to help us accomplish our goals. And they're also very much about listening to the body and what the body needs as a form of self care. And remembering that our bodies are living temples of love. We are embodiments of the divine love. That is what the universe is made of, as we are. Okay. All right. We have 5 planets still retrograde: Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. Chiron is also retrograde. Venus and Mercury have gone direct, but are still in what's called their retroshade zones. Venus will come out of hers on October 7th. And I don't really have the date for Mercury. It'll be let's see, about 3 weeks. I can't remember. I'm just going to have to look that one up. All right. So, anyway, the energy though is still moving slow, but the log jam is now moving and breaking up. It's still time to regroup and reset, as the energy is moving, but it's still slow. And we may start to get clarity and guidance around what our next steps are. All right. Okay. We also still have the North Node in Aries conjunct Eris. And I do feel like this is very much still about standing up for ourselves, being heard where we say no. But the ruler is Mars in Libra. So Mars in Libra asks us to also be concerned with justice and fairness. It's not just what we want, what is just, what is fair, what is true. Okay. All right. So let's also talk about the moon. So the moon this week on Monday and Tuesday is in Scorpio. Scorpio is, of course, can be very intensely feeling and emotional. And to know that there are maybe some emotional places that are coming up for awareness, coming to the light, coming into conscious awareness for healing, and to allow ourselves to feel them, but to also know that these emotions don't always last. These emotions don't last. We move through them. Yeah. And to allow ourselves to feel them and let them go. And then by Wednesday through midday Friday, the moon is in Sagittarius, which is really coming out of the healing and the deep inner work of Scorpio into the light. And what have we learned? What is our new vision? It's a much more optimistic and upbeat kind of an energy, and might want a little bit of an adventure. All right. And then mid Friday through Sunday, the moon is in Capricorn. The weekends are usually times for lots of fun. And well, with the moon in Capricorn, we might find that what's actually fun and enjoyable for us is to maybe get our space organized, take care of some things that need to be taken care of. We might have maybe get the laundry done, kind of things that make us feel good about ourselves through a sense of accomplishment and getting organized again. And taking and doing some practical things, maybe some things we've been wanting to do but haven't had time to do. This might be a good time to do them, like paint a fence or, whatever. Anyway, um, the moon is also conjunct Pluto on Sunday. So once again, is really bringing up when the moon conjuncts Pluto, it asks us to own our stuff and some emotional maturity. And yeah, that's really what it is asking. And we also might have some really kind of deep emotions. And, the Pluto is just in a way, is the ruler of Scorpio. So it's really like feeling it, feel it and then let it go. Feel it and then let it go. Okay. All right. Anyway, it looks like a really wonderful week with the sun moving into Libra. We see the turning of the wheel, and we can feel the energy shifting in the air. Anyway, wishing you all a wonderful week, sending you many blessings, and namaste.